talk about at the highest level of college basketball, the immense amount of power that some of these coaches have, and just the effects of the misuse of influence.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a coaching perspective, you're always having some kind of influence, on these guys. And I've just, the more I've gone through coaching, I've always thought about this. I think my legacy as a coach, our legacy as coaches, is not going to be by how many games or how many championships we win. Our legacy as a coach is always going to be measured by how do our players talk about us after we're gone. Because those kind of influences carry on long after we're gone. And there are things that can be laid down for generations of actual lessons, I think, as coaches we can, provide. And I'm not sitting here saying that I'm perfect, and I've probably handled situations poorly and have made mistakes and have done things that I wish I could have done differently. But at the end of the day, as coaches, that's what you're really being measured on, is how your players talk. Because when those players have their own children and they ask, well, who did you play for? What was he like? And now that player starts to talk about you, that's really your legacy. That's what really carries on. And that's what, I was always amazed when I saw John Wooden or I saw a Dean Smith, the way those players talked about them. So you talk about an impact. To me, that's what the impact is in coaching, because the winning is all great, but at the end of the day, it really has a lot more to do with how do your players actually talk about you, once you're gone. And believe me, I've had more players come back to me over the years that were really difficult and challenging to coach, and it was not a great relationship, and they've come back and our relationship has gotten better because they maybe see. The hardest thing for me in coaching is we're always planting seeds in players. And if you can look at it this way, we're always planting seeds. Sometimes that seed doesn't take sprout and doesn't bloom until long after they're gone. And the frustration part for us as coaches is we want that plant to flower right now. We want to harvest right now. And sometimes that harvest in different people's lives at different times in their life. And that's the one thing I've learned when I've had players that have come back that have said, geez, I wish I would have handled things differently, or I wish I would have saw things a little bit more clearly. Really interesting. And then I've had some unbelievable moments. Brett and I shared this story with Brett. This was a situation with one of our national championship teams. I had a senior who was a fifth-year senior who was really a handful. He was a real handful. And we had Joakim Noah and Al Horford were two young players on our team with obviously great potential, and they've done unbelievable things throughout their career. But this guy I was trying to tell him, you need to help these guys. You need to invest in these guys. And he didn't want to hear it. He wanted to play. And he thought that he should be on the court, and that I was letting them play through mistakes, and he wasn't allowed to play through mistakes. And he was an okay player. He dealt with some back injuries. Well, it started to get to a point where, fast forward during the course of the year, he started to become extremely disruptive. And he started to disconnect, just a bad attitude. And what I found out was he was concerned as a senior, what about me? Like, what's going to happen to me when this thing comes to an end? And we had this huge blow-up in a film room, and I give Joakim Noah and Al Horford a lot of credit because they apologized that they weren't doing their job well enough. But what ended up happening was we got to the Final Four, and he, during the last quarter of the season, was unbelievable coaching Noah and Horford and our front court players. And I really tried to talk to him because he wanted to coach. And I said, listen, if you want to coach, I hope you get a whole team full of guys like you so you can see what it's like to deal with it. So we're going through this, and I'm trying to get him to see it, and he will not see it. He just does not want to see it. Well, he comes off the bench in the national championship game. He scores 9 points. And before that, we were going to the Final Four, and I met with our team. We got back from wherever we were playing, and I was leaving, and he was waiting outside the locker room for me. He said, "Can I talk to you?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "I get it now. I get what you want me to do, and I understand it. And I'm sorry I didn't get it sooner." And Joakim Noah and Horford, to this day, will tell you that their evolution and their success, they were going to be great players anyway, that this player helped them a lot. So we've got the normal, game ends, win the national championship, and you're sitting up there with the director of the NCAA tournament, and they give you the trophy, and your team is supposed to come and get the trophy, and you see, people hoist the trophy. The team wouldn't take it. They made him take it, and he held it by himself. When we went to the White House to meet President Bush, the team didn't go up there. They allowed him to go up there and give the president a Florida jersey. And those, to me, were things that were never talked about, never read about, were never in the media, that as a coach, I was really, really touched by. Because, and not to get, into what anybody's religious beliefs are, but there is a huge spiritual component to this for me. There is a higher calling for me, in all this, and my faith is very, very important. And I think, to Dr. Lair's point, when you're going through this chase, does bitterness come out? Does resentment come out? Does anger come out? Does frustration come out? Are you not a good person? I think you heard some of the I'm short. I'm not being a good father. I'm tunneled. There's so many things that kind of get exposed, and then you're having to address them. And that's not all bad either, because we're not perfect. But I think through this chase and through this journey, you actually get a chance to become a better version of yourself. And I don't think if you're the pressure part of coaching and all that stuff is just another way for you to grow and find out more about yourself, in those adverse situations. And I never looked at it like that before. I'll be the first one to tell you. The first person that changed my mind was Dr. Lair when I spent a lot of time with him. It was about, it must have been maybe almost 10 years ago. It was myself, Urban Meyer, Greg Schiano, and Brocco Mendenhall. The four of us spent about 2.5 days. And it was really, really eye-opening to me. And it made me, he asked this question, and this really changed my perspective on coaching. He said to me, "What is your purpose in coaching?" And it cannot be about anything materialistic. It can't be about winning. It can't be about financial security. It can't be about trophies. It can't be about championships. It can't be about any of those things. What are you trying to do each and every day? What value do you bring? And it forced me to think on a deeper level about, okay, what is my calling? What am I supposed to do? And what is my mission in coaching? And he was exactly right, because I think there's an enormous amount of freedom in being who you want to be as a coach without having to deal and worry about the results. And I am a big believer in the process. There's a process we all have to go through. If we had control over the results, we would always get the results that we want, but we don't. But we do have control over the process. We do have control over who we're becoming in this chase. We do have control over, what kind of changes we need to make in our life.
And it's been unbelievable to listen to Billy, and I hope that we can all appreciate his authenticity and his willingness to go in and kind of give us a behind-the-scenes thought on how he approaches situations. So thank you very much, Billy, for your time.
Thank you.
You're awesome, man. Really appreciate it.